Welcome to the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. I'm your host, Simone Morris, and I have a passion for empowering others to take responsibility for their careers. Yes, I've written several books on owning your career and am loving hosting this podcast. This podcast is for you if you're willing to make a shift to the driver's seat in your career. We feature leaders who inspire, empower, and motivate you for consistent career action for results. Please continue to join us every Sunday when a new episode is released. Let's get into this week's show. Welcome to season 10. I am so delighted. Oh, it's going to be an amazing season. This is Simone Morris, host of the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. And we have really been intentional this season about selecting stellar guests for the 10th season of the podcast. I can't even believe it. I'm still having fun, which is a good thing. So we'll keep going. And I want to bring to you today Tiffany Cheng, who is the founder of Inspire My Day. I love that. Inspire My Day. It just feels, something about it feels good. I was reading her bio and her website, and I want to get into this 8-year journey to vice president. But anyway, Tiffany, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Hey, thank you, Simone. And congratulations for the 10th season and as well 4 years journey for your podcast. What a great value you've been bringing to all of us.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. Well, I said a little bit, but tell our audience a little bit more about who you are and what you're currently doing.
Yeah, so I am currently the founder of Inspire My Day. I help expats move from the middle management to the top 1% of their company by changing the way they influence themselves and influence others so that they can make more, impact more, and become more. So that is the mission of my company. And one of the reasons that I choose to help this group of people and choose this as a mission, because I struggled in reality 12 years in total in the middle management. And I tried everything I can, but there was a lot of mistakes that I made and a lot of time and effort spending on the wrong place and the wrong area. So I would like to offer what I have learned in my journey through this middle management. Eventually I moved to the top, but that was really, really long 12 years personally to me.
That's awesome. I love that. So would you say those 12 years you were in the passenger seat? This show is a lot about being in the driver's seat, which is taking control of your career, having your roadmap, steering, driving to where you want to get to. When you talk about those 12 years, would you classify it as being a passenger, or how would you classify it?
I would say there are times I was in the passenger seat without knowing I was in the passenger seat. And I'll give you one example is that when we say that, oh, I did my best, but to be a top leader, you need to do what it takes. You did your best doesn't mean that you are in a driving seat. You do what it takes. That's a driving seat. But most of the time, we're not aware that we put ourselves in a passenger seat. So that comes over 12 years in the making to realize that I actually thought I was in the driver's seat, but I put myself in the passenger seat.
So what was your aha moment? Because I remember my aha moment, and I talk about this often on the show, that my manager, I was disappointed yet again with another performance review. And it wasn't from a performance standpoint. It was similar to your story. I wasn't getting promoted. And it had been a long journey and I was frustrated. And so my expectation was at a different level. And I said something to her and she said to me, Simone, your career is your responsibility. And that's really my aha moment that sticks with me. Tiffany, what's your aha moment where you're like, enough, enough, something's got to change. All right. And then change occurred.
Yeah, there are so many of them, but there's one particular one that was in 2016. So that I was about 10 years in my middle management level and I was in my early 30s. And 2016 was a great year. I was pregnant with my first baby. And at the same time, when I was 8 months pregnant, I was being promoted to, not really a promoting, but it's a parallel change to the external communication director job. And I was super grateful because 8 months pregnant to appoint someone in that stage to a new job, obviously the team and my future manager will need to bear the inconvenience of going for maternity leave, etc. So I was really grateful. And then I had my baby. I went for my maternity leave. When I came back from maternity leave in December 2016, I was really happy and ready to be a full-time working mother and raise my family here in Belgium. I live in Belgium. And within a week, I returned. My manager called me into his office and he said, we have an announcement to make. Obviously, head of communication need to make announcement. I was there to prepare for the announcement. And he said, we are moving our global headquarters from Belgium to another country, Sweden.
Wow.
I work at Volvo Group. So that's a Swedish company. And the moving time is January. So at the same time, I could not discuss this with anybody because I'm the one preparing this announcement. But at the same time, I was being really crushed with this news, knowing that I cannot relocate. I just had a family. We're very well settled here, and I was not ready to move to Sweden at all. So and together with me, there were well over 200 employees and executives in the headquarters in Belgium. So they were all impacted. We were all impacted. There are many colleagues who just bought a house close to our office so that they can bike to work. We have other colleagues who just signed up daycare and the school for their kids, just like 5 minutes walk beside the office so they can arrange their life conveniently. And there's so many stories like that. We were all heavily impacted by this story. And so what do? We complain a lot together, like, oh, this is unfair. We're not happy with this. And most people cannot move. And that was I did that for almost a year. And at one point I realized that I cannot continue this. And the entire atmosphere was really, really negative. So at the same time, I'm seeing my peers who were also in the middle management. They were moving up. They were becoming the general managers, vice president, and many more top positions. So I realized that I need to change. So that was the time I changed a few things. First change I made is I stopped complaining. I realized that to complain, sometimes we think it's a great way to connect with other people because other people are living the same, but it's actually the worst way to connect with people. And plus the 80% of people we complain to, they don't really care. And the other 20% are quite glad you have a problem. So that's the first thing I changed, is that I really stopped myself complaining. So it's very hard to change. Especially you are living in the environment while everyone else is in that kind of mood. So sometimes during lunchtime, I would sit in my desk eating a sandwich rather than go to the canteen to stop myself doing that. And second is I start to manage my attention very intentionally. It's not about time management. It's not about just self-management. It's more about attention management. Attention becomes the most scarce thing in the world now. It's not oil or other stuff, because if you look at the top 10 most valuable company in the world, they are all attention companies, Google, Facebook, etc. So managing attention means that I no longer want my attention to go to, first of all, people who are negative, and second of all, the task, the work that is low value but kept me really busy. There were so many of them. At the early stage of my career, my promotion was really fast. I was being promoted every 1 or 2 years to the middle management. And at that point, I always thought to do more, deliver faster, give more is the winning element of getting the promotion. And that obviously was not, especially from middle to top. Doing more, deliver more faster is not the formula. So to have my attention back to high value work, high impact work is so much more important, because it's very easy to be busy, but it's very difficult to make an impact. So to make an impact, we need to be very disciplined to arrange our own day with high value, high impact work. So that's the
Let me
second.
interrupt for a moment. How did you, it sounds like you honed in on a strategy. What resources did you use to figure out? Because a lot of people are focused on getting the job done. Totally understand the negativity is poisonous in the workplace. Getting the job done, what resources, people that you tap into to know that you need to focus on the high value influence work to get the results you were seeking?
Yeah. So I think starting from the internal work on what do I want to be known for? I probably can guess that the keywords I was being known for when I was in the middle management is fast delivery, a lot of result, and hardworking. That's probably the three keywords. And if I wanted to move to the top 1% of my company, which was a 41 billion euro company with 100,000 employees, and you want to move to that range, what I need to be known for is not these words, right? So identify what is that you want to be known for. When HR are in with the top leadership in the success review, in the talent review, when they talk about you, what should they describe you? Understand that first. Then it's a lot of discipline, because people can keep coming to you with emails, chat, meetings, and book your time. If you let other people take care of your day and you just go and autopilot, that will keep you very busy, but not so much achieved. So in order to do that, and understand what you want to be known for first, then protect your calendar with, these are my high impact working time. That can be that 3 days a week from 9 to 11, I'm just going to block my calendar so that I work on these high impact projects, which maybe I'm the owner, maybe I want to be the owner. So protect that. Then you leave the rest of the day going into these busy and important or just urgent and not important work. You still need to have room for these, because we all know we cannot avoid that. But do not let that eat the calendar first. Then you plan the other things. That will be a really good formula to go busy and no impact.
So speaking of formula, tell us your formula for owning your career.
My formula for owning my career is, I think there are three things. First is, after this, what happened with the headquarters, I understood about work hard on my job, but work harder on myself. I think one of the mistakes I always was making was that I was too busy to be successful. I was, very proud that I could one person do three people's job, one team, including my team, we can do, double our size work. We were very proud of that before. And after realizing working hard on my job versus working hard on myself and our team development on ourselves, that's the first change. That's the first formula. And second is what I mentioned about manage my attention with intention. It's we human beings have 60,000 thoughts a day. And if we don't manage it, it will just go autopilot. It will go where the social media want us to go. Yep. So it's very important that we don't let our calendar of the day, our agenda, and people around us to manage us. We need to become very intentional of where our attention goes, where our time goes, and what are the high impact, high value work. What are the things that we want to influence us, and be very intentional also with the people around us, because people surrounded us have a very high impact on us, more than we probably think about. Some of our friends, if we don't, colleagues, if we don't pay attention, they would like, if they don't change and develop, right, they would like to keep us where they are. So these are the, when you go through a change, also including changing organization, etc., the most difficult part is that you want to change, but the environment around you is not enabling for you to do that change. So the environment you need to create then for your personal development is to create that environment that will help you to make the new habit, new belief, new mindset a little easier, and the old ones a little bit more difficult to go back. And I think the third formula is also the most important. And these days, I teach a lot of my clients and students to, when they go for interview, when they communicate top down rather than bottom up. Let me explain what I mean. Is that as a manager, as a middle management, you probably communicate and do a lot of work around results. And that is what you do and what's the result you bring. But as you want to move up to become a top leader, that you need to communicate instead of result, communicate impact. That is why is it important. And many of the days when you go for these students and clients go for interview, or when I was interviewing people to come to my team to work, they would demonstrate a lot of results, how much they can deliver, how much they can convert, how much sales they can do. But as a leader, that part is necessary. It's a foundation, of course, but it's much more than that. You need to be able to communicate the influence. Why is this important? How is this contributing to the vision of the company, the strategy, etc. So that's the 3 formula. First, work harder on yourself. Second, manage your attention with intention. And third is to communicate top down.
I love that word impact, because I think we get it twisted with results. And I think that some of that comes from training in the corporate space. I come from a corporate background, and I know there was always, what are your results? The performance review conversation. What did you achieve? And I remember having the goals and writing down the results. But it is, you're right, to stand out, that impact and how you communicate or package that to decision makers, to people who can make things, sponsors who can make things happen, is really key. So I love that you said that. How does one work on their impact? How does one dive deeply into building up their story or their message around impact? Are there resources that you can share with the audience?
Yeah, I think impact, I mean, first of all, let's just think about it. When you are a leader, or when you meet a leader, you expect this leader to help you connect the dots. And that's someone that you want to follow. So being a leader actually is being able to influence. Without being into influence up, cross, and down, it's impossible to be a leader. So just think that way, and then you understand how important it is to influence. And to influence, you can't just be influencing with the results and the numbers and the data, right? People are not going to feel inspired and engaged with just numbers and the logics. People want to be inspired, just like any one of us. So that's just how important it is. And in terms of how to impact and how to influence, there are, depending on who is the audience, really. I think there are 3 steps, which I have it in my free workbook. If you cannot take notes now, you're free feel free to download in later on. There are three steps. First step is you need to connect with yourself and ask yourself, what story am I telling myself about this? Either announcement you're going to make, strategy you're going to roll out, transformation you're going to implement. Even what's the story I'm telling myself about myself? These are the important questions to ask yourself. So I call it connect with yourself first. And maybe there are certain things, a strategy announcement, you yourself don't even believe it's a great idea. Then how can you go out and make an impact and influence authentically if you don't even believe? People will sense it. So that's really the first, most important step. And there are a set of questions I have in the free workbook. And second step is you need to be able to connect with the audience. What is it that they already know? What is that they want to know? What is that they need to know? What is that their fear is? I give this example. You know that every company is right now making transformation, and very often they are making digital transformation. So digital transformation in a company president, right, the top leadership eyes is the company will have much more transparencies, efficiencies. We will be able to connect the data. We will be able to serve our customer better and react faster, lower the cost. There are so many great benefits of this digital transformation. But to someone who work in the front line as a salesperson, digital transformation means that not only now they need to visit 8 hours of customer, but also they need to come back and spend extra 2 hours to input all the data in the digital world, so that the company president and etc. other people globally can connect the dots and make things efficient. But to that person, the salesperson in front, that means 2 extra hours of work. And not only that, perhaps the digital transformation also means that they need to increase the price to their customer and lose certain customers and lose their bonus at the end of the year. So that means a totally different perspective for that person in the front line. So you need to be able to address those fears instead of just go straight and talk about how great it is for the company, for you, for feasibilities and transparencies and efficiencies and cost. So that is something we need to address, because in that person's eyes, that's the only thing they see. And I also often encourage leaders to put yourself, your entire company, your team in a train. So if you have a company of 10,000 employees, put all the 10,000 people on the train. Now you are transforming. The train is changing directions. Leaders sitting in the front, different people in a different country and different department functions sitting in the rest of the train. The train is now changing direction. The leader in the front is getting all these emails, meetings, people they meet, so that they are very much in the forefront. The view they see, the train is changing, is very different from the people who sit in the middle and the back of the train. So the leader who want to make an impact need to be able to go down the train and connect the dots for the people who are not seeing any of these views, going into any of these meetings with the consulting agencies and showing the trends. The leader needs to show that to them and connect the dots for them. So that's the second step of connect with the people, the audience, so that whatever you are going to say and communicate will have an influence and impact. And then third is to create your message. If you cannot tell yourself with one sentence of the message, you don't even understand yourself. So create that key message. What should people take away with whatever you are communicating? That also including going in for an interview. You are communicating about yourself. What should people take away with that one sentence of you? And the last point is that you are able to, connecting all the dots and communicate to the people. So that's the 3 keywords: connect, create, and communicate.
Wow, sounds like a lot of work. And so it goes back to what we talked about earlier in the podcast, to make time to work harder. I think oftentimes people are so busy with the work that when you think about how to transform yourself and the amount of work it's going to take, because what you're talking about is having thinking time to think through so you can lead effectively and influence and impact others. I mean, it's work. So be willing to put in the work in yourself in order to see the results. Love that. Can you talk about risk? Have you, what sort of risks have you taken? Because you talked about changing yourself, changing your surroundings, the environment, your strategy, and being able to get the results of more promotion in the way that you'd like, but you are now the founder of your own company. So tell me about how you see risk and give us some examples of risks that you've taken that have really paid off in your career.
Yeah, I'm really good at taking risks. I was 2 times expat, and being an expat, if any of the audience were an expat before, you know that once you take that job, you don't know what will happen next and whether you will have a job next and where you will be next, because you're going to a different country. So one of the risks I took was during the COVID time. I was being promoted to the vice president of marketing communication brand to the other side of the world. So we live in Europe. And I was being promoted. This job was to go to Asia, in China. And this was during the COVID time. Actually, I signed the contract in February 2020 without knowing March that everything started with the COVID. So I went anyways. and this time without my family. I have two small kids. I have at the time 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. And I went to China during the middle of the COVID. And the idea was that they will follow me later on. But who knows, after I landed, just 3 weeks after, China closed. And it said that we no longer issue visa to the list of countries, and Belgium was one of them.
Oh, wow.
So at that time, I didn't really know when I will be able to see my family again, because there's just no ending date of when. Sometimes we thought maybe it's just 2 weeks, but it lasted for a few years. Recently, it opened. That was probably the biggest risk I took. And going to China also took a much bigger job, have a much bigger responsibility, much bigger team, was not easy as well. And these this is also including, at the time I was reporting to two presidents, one of the president of Asia, another president of China, and the Asia president was the one that appointed me, not the one from China. So he was not really wanted to cooperate with me. And every time I go and ask him, I say, hey, when do we have our next dealer conference and employee strategy meetings? And he always half joking and half serious and said to me, as soon as you go back to Belgium. So under these circumstances, it was really hard. Actually, it was really hard on my life as well, because my life became completely virtual. We celebrate Christmas, New Year on our iPad with my kids, and they were sick a lot. We had 7 hours of difference, and I was calling them always starting from midnight. I get to call them because that's when they come back from school. And at work, it was really hard as well. I was doing reorganizations and new team, also a lot of resistance. So there are two things I did during the time when I was having this very challenging period, which is not a long time ago. And the first is I just tell myself that everything is temporary. No matter how hard it is, it's not going to last forever. So as soon as you think everything is temporary, like I am here, this position is temporary, this president is temporary, this entire situation is never going to last forever. And you start to see things very differently. So for example, I called the president of China, region China. I said, I'm not going anywhere until we can work together, because this is all temporary. So that conversation turned into 2 hours, and we start to work very well after that. He invited me to customer meetings, and he had enormous knowledge about market, industry, and customer. So I learned so much from him. And for the family as well, I thought, this is temporary, right? So I'm actually living a single life again. And why don't I just enjoy this and go spa and meet friends and do all these things? And that I was never had any chance to do anymore as soon as I returned to my kids. So I started to look at things very differently. And second thing that really helped me during this time was that have the mentality that it's not unique for you. This experience is shared by millions of other people, including the not getting along with the boss. I think we all have that experience. This is not unique. And COVID, the entire world is having that situation. Many families were separated. So that helps me to think that I'm not the only one that experienced this. It relieved me. And this was one of the, I think, the biggest risk I took, because it was really, I just mentioned, the headquarters moved from Belgium. So that means when I take that ticket to go to China, there's no job to return to my home country. I can return to other places where my family cannot move to. But that was really a big risk, because I knew that when I came back, there will be no more job for me.
Wow. What an amazing story. So how long did it take for you to get back to your family?
It felt really long, but it's actually 6 months. But I remember I postponed my ticket 5 times, because every time I postponed, I was looking at the visa, it's not opening. And I can tell you one more risk is the day I decided to come back, it was still not open. And so my manager, the two president, asked me, so when you go back, when can you return to this job? I was like, I don't know, but I don't care. I need to see my kids. I cannot continue this life anymore. So I just said, I don't know what will happen, but 6 months is really long for us, and I need to go back, and I need to take this risk. Even if it's not open, I'm okay. You want to take whatever decision you want to take.
Wow. That's an amazing story. Oh my goodness. I do know that, yeah, a lot of families were impacted. I can't imagine. I have a 7-year-old and oh my goodness, I don't know what I would do with myself. That is quite a story, part of your legacy and I'm sure a skill set you're teaching your kids about resilience.
Yes.
Mhm. And so the Inspire My Day, what is that like the day? You know, I understand about inspiring people to greatness, but love that my day, Inspire My Day.
Thank you. If I can be very honest with you, it's because Inspire Me is gone. I wanted that name, and Inspire You is gone as well.
Mm,
But in the end, I really love this name as well because it's sometimes about these little things that we can inspire people. It can be someone else's story. The story you are telling with your soon to be 10 seasons, these are all inspiring people's day, and small or big. So I really liked it. I really like this name. The more I use it, the more people also tell me they like it. So yeah, so that was the
it
reason.
was meant to be because
It was meant to
inspire
be.
me, inspire you, but there's just something, a nice ring to inspire my day. It feels good. It evokes this emotion. So tell me if you, because it kind of sounds like a book title too, but if you were to come up with a title for your career body of work, what would that be? What do you
Oh,
think?
that that one I'll probably need to tell you another story.
You are a
I
storyteller. Good
I don't know if
stories
we
though.
have. Yeah, so this story was that how I started my career. I started by learning English. So one day I decided that I wanted to work in a Fortune 500. But to be able to work in a Fortune 500 and you speak good English. So I learned English I majored in English during my university. And after I graduated, there was just absolutely no job for people majoring in English because English majors were considered has no skills in China. So I couldn't find any jobs. All the Fortune 500, I remember I was sitting in the exam with 7,000 other students competing for 7 jobs from Musk, this shipping company. And I never passed any of the written tests. So I was never being even interviewed by any of the big companies. And at that time, when I was learning English, I was searching many native speakers because in China, I was born in the 80s. So it's very hard to access native speakers and English materials. There's a lot of Chinglish, Chinese English. So I started to search very outdated magazines and DVDs, and I find one person that was Kali Fiorina. She was the CEO of HP at the time. She was ranked
Yes,
as
yes,
the
yes.
#1 most powerful woman in the world. And I was like, wow, she looked so elegant. And then I find her DVDs as well. She was having an interview with Bill Gates. And I was like, I didn't understand a word she was saying, but I really liked the way she sounded. I like the way she dressed. I like the way she presented herself. So I was thinking that's how success should look like. So my idea was, as long as I can get into these big companies, I'll make my way. So but without getting any interview, I started to lower my expectations to any job in any company. So eventually there was one company I was sending like 200-300 resumes. And if a company called me with Leo Burnett, it's an advertising agency. And they called me to go and interview for the job of secretary of the COO. And I didn't even remember I applied for that job. So I was like, okay, I'll do it. I'll come. So the COO looked at my resume and he said, we graduated from the same university. People graduate from there, don't become secretaries. And he said, let me give you a job. I'll put you in a McDonald's team. I was like, okay. But he said, your salary will be 200 euro a month, which is it's little less than 2,000 RMB. I was like, okay, I'll do it. So if you ask me, so in total from Leo Burnett almost being a secretary to the vice president of this 41 billion euro company, our group, it took 13 years. And if you ask me the title, the headline, that will be from a secretary in China to Fortune 500 VP in Europe.
So did you do a secretary job though?
I didn't. I went for that. That was the starting point of getting myself in. And I didn't expect that to come so fast. So during the interview, he said that you shouldn't be a secretary. So he put me in the McDonald's account, which at the time I was not qualified at all because I know nothing about advertisement. So the job, actually the day-to-day job was that I was burning DVDs, delivering DVDs, compressing files for everyone, but nothing else. I remember one time I was delivering one DVD for McDonald's from Shanghai to Beijing, take a plane and come back at the same day. So I don't know, that job is secretary job, but with a different title, or it is someone who just run errands for everyone in the agency.
Yeah, well, sometimes we get blessed with a sponsor, which a sponsor opens doors, because I remember being a secretary. I had a college degree and I couldn't find a job. So I ended up being a secretary for a year and I hated it. So it didn't last long because I knew this is not going to be it. But how wonderful to have a sponsor to help you. Yeah. I'm going to give you an opportunity. Access is an important thing we talk about now from a diversity, equity, and inclusion standpoint. So that's my other world of work that I do, but I love that story. So any parting words as we begin to wrap up this interview, Tiffany? This has been awesome just to hear your many different stories and inspiration to our community. Any parting words that you'd like to leave the community with, excuse me?
Yeah, I think first of all, that whatever you are encountering right now, whatever level you are, just think with this mentality that everything is happening for you and not to you. Everything is happening for you to reach your next dream and goal. As long as you have a goal, you have a vision for yourself, and don't be a victim, never complain. And remember what I said, 80% don't care and the other 20% just happy you have a problem. So that will be my last takeaway of today's interview.
Awesome. It's been such a pleasure to have you on the show. Please tell our listeners how they can stay connected with you if they'd like to do so.
Yeah, so they can connect with me on my LinkedIn, Tiffany Cheng. Or they can also come to our website, inspiremyday.org, O-R-G in the end. And you can find many free resources on my website, from free quiz to discover your influence type to the 3-step workbook, what I just mentioned.
Awesome. Well, Tiffany, thank you so much for opening season 10. And it's been a pleasure having you on the Power of Owning Your Career podcast.
Thank you.
I sincerely hope that you enjoyed this week's empowering career story on the podcast. If you did, I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. Wherever you listen to the podcast, be sure that you are subscribing and that you rate and review the podcast. It's so important as we continue to spread the word of career empowerment. In addition, you can head over to the LinkedIn platform and join the Power of Owning Your Career discussion group. There you can have access to the guests who have been on the podcast, as well as others listening to the podcast, as well as myself, where we can continue the conversation. I hope to see you on that platform. You can also email me at pooyc@simonemorris.com if you have a suggestion for guest or a message that you want me to hear personally. Thanks so much, and make it an inspiring, empowering week in your career.